Take it away, Annie.
Welcome, everybody, to the SFAA Spotlight Talk with the artist Steve Hurd. So I'm Annie Reiniger-Holub. I'm going to do a quick introduction to Steve, and then we'll get started with the talk. I just want to give you a little context. I met Steve Hurd my freshman year at SFAI. That was 1976, and he was a sophomore. And just to give you a little context about the times, music at that time was going from a rapid transition from the Bee Gees, disco, to punk, Patti Smith. And SFAI had about 1,200 students and a very diverse crowd. And the year that Steve started, they had ousted a president, Arnold Hurstan. So there was a lot of turmoil that had just passed before I arrived. Most of the kids were from the East Coast and the Midwest. Steve was the first native Californian I'd ever met, which was kind of blew me away that there weren't very many California students there at that time. And one of the big things when we arrived in 76 was Carlos Villa had curated a show called Other Sources. And this is a show sort of commemorating artists of color and women in the time of this nationwide centennial celebration of 1776 to 1976. So it was this phenomenal show of focus on people of color and women. And it was a really great introduction to the Bay Area and all its diversity. There were a lot of vets at the school. There was Samoan, like a huge, community of Samoans. There were Icelanders and Europeans. It was just an amazing, diverse crowd. And I met Steve Hurd in all of that soup. And here he is to give you his story of his life as an artist.
All right. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, San Francisco Artists Alumni, for asking me to do this. I think I'll get going. I got a lot of stuff, had to go through a lot of stuff. I'm going to make it like the top 10 or whatever it is. So first of all, this is 1969. I took my first class at the San Francisco Art Institute. It was a class for kids in the summer of 69. I was 13 years old. My father was stationed at the Presidio. And now in hindsight, I feel really lucky that he was there and not in Vietnam. And they sent me to the Art Institute to take a class. And of course, I fell in love with the place. And this is a drawing I did right in front of the school, looking down Chestnut Street towards North Beach. There's a whole bunch, but I like this one in particular. And there I am with a stocking cap on. And there's another picture here. Here I am in the class. So that was nice. Anyways, 8 years later, after moving to Sacramento, my dad got out of the military, moved to Sacramento and wanted to get right back to the Art Institute. Actually, it would have been 7 years later, because this is 8 years later. This is my second year. And they just started the residential parking that made all of us have to move our cars every 2 hours. And we were pretty upset about that. I made this car to put in a parking place as a protest. It looked a lot better down in the sculpture area, but by the time I dragged it up, and this is a note that they put, they had a good sense of humor, that they were putting in everybody's car to tell them that they had to, that this thing was going to be implemented. Here you can see a better shot of the car. Yeah. And so Richard Miller, my teacher, Dick Miller, he called up the local news, and we were on the 6 o'clock news on TV, and there was a rally about it, and the car was featured. Now, a few years later, maybe my junior or senior year, I did this piece on the roof of what they call Pete's now, but the Haven back then, and it's called Fire and Ice. I made 5 cylinders. There was this block of ice in the middle, and I filled up each cylinder with bark from the Presidio, and it's eucalyptus bark, and it would burn really nice and clean. The idea was that they would burn and the smoke would just come out of the face, and it would be kind of a nice ritualistic thing I did at dusk on the roof. And it turned into something else, which is always exciting with art, when the art gets bigger than you. You can see the smoke was really nice. There wasn't any sparks. It was on top of the roof. It's all cement. I was in the, what do you call it, the janitorial crew, and I had access to a hose. So and there was a faucet on top. So I had a hose there ready if anything went wrong. But it went pretty well. But I didn't really think about the fact that inside it was with burlap, and the burlap would start to burn. And they would get kind of out of control and start to fall over and became a big fire. And here they are falling over. Next to me is the famous Richard Irwin, and we are looking down at the fire trucks that were coming. And so I ran down and I told them we had it under control. That it was. I said there was some other student did this, but it's all. And I had plaster all over my pants. So. Anyways, I should have had that off. Anyways, let me turn this off. Oh, well. Anyways, the fire department came, and this guy. Okay. Anyways, this guy wanted to, get me and, take the axe to everything. And then there was an older guy who was in charge that actually put the fire out. And so that was that. Okay.
But Steve, what made you do this?
Oh, we're gonna do the questions at the end.
Okay.
And we actually asked everybody to put their speakers off, right? Maria, is this Maria? Who asked this?
Nina,
right.
Yeah, please stay muted
I'll
for
do it
now so
afterwards.
Steve can do his talk, and then put your questions in the chat for now, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna kind of rip through it, and then we have time for questions. But anyways, so 6 years later, I'm after the Art Institute. I mean, 6 years after I graduated in '79, I moved to LA to go to UCLA, and the contrast is really great, as you can see. And I wasn't really thrilled about being in LA, but at the same time, there seemed to be a lot of opportunity, and UCLA was like a full free ride with even a paid TA ship. So it was great. Anyways, Marshall Weber, who was running and started with other artists, Artist Television Access, asked a bunch of us to do a show there called LA Rules. And I guess it was kind of poking San Francisco about kind of I know this because I didn't like Southern California, and you can see why, because San Francisco is so nice and LA isn't. But this show called LA Rules, and I did this piece called in the window of Artist Television Access called Trash This Town, where I bought trash from all over the city. I took all the stinky stuff out, and so it was, it didn't smell in there. And then I painted this the famous landscape on the trash. And excuse the 35 millimeter shots. They're not as good as what you can do on your phone anymore. Anyways, it was interesting. The piece lasted for a week, and then once again, the San Francisco Fire Department put out my art and told them to take it down, and so it was stopped by the fire department. Ironically, 11 years after putting out the piece on the roof. After I got out of graduate school, I'm not going to show any of that work. I did this piece. They had an open call, Artist Foundation Resources FAR, to do a piece in the MacArthur Park. And at that time in 1991, Jesse Helms had taken away the NEA grants from Karen Finley, who was alumni I went to school with, and a New York artist now, Tim Miller and John Fleck, both LA artists, and Holly Hughes, a New York artist. And they took away their grants because Jesse Helms said their work was stomach turning. But it was basically because it was on sexual things, usually about LGBTQ issues and that kind of other sexual loaded stuff. So they took away their grant. And my proposal was to paint Manet's Luncheon on the Grass. I won't say it in French. I'll ruin that. But and so I painted that under the table where actually no one could see it. And I called the piece No Picnic. And for those of you who might need remember what the image looks like, here is the original. The thing was, this painting was also controversial at the time with nudity, with two naked women and clothed men. So anyways, that's what I thought that was appropriate. Here is my first show, AB Gallery, which was a gallery that an artist, Bill Quigley, started, and he needed somebody to direct it. And we brought in another friend of mine, Dan Bernier, who was a collector, an art enthusiast, and was all game to run the gallery. So, and sadly, Dan just passed away unexpected. He's younger than me, so that just shows you how fragile life is. Anyway, so this is Snuggle, and the show was a bunch of work that I made based on advertising that had psychological things going. I think it made it different than other pop art because it wasn't the name brands like Coca-Cola or Campbell's Soup, but these psychological issues. And this one's called Kid Care, and it was telling you to bring your child to the mall where they would photograph the kid and your children and put them in a database, all before the internet. And it's two canvases, it's hinged, and you open up the hinge canvas, and there is a tag for your dog in case your dog gets lost, Smokey, which seems appropriate, and then an image of how we treat children in other countries. This was also my first piece I ever sold to a collector, and it was called 5 Good Reasons. I got this in the mail, and it was for these guys who are paralyzed and can only paint with their mouth. And I was reading these 5 reasons here, and I thought, oh wow, those are all the reasons I use. It all applies to me too. Your interest in our work gives us courage to continue. You receive an honest value at a low price. Your recognition of our talent inspires us to work harder. Your purchase an additional order enables us to be employed. You help us to achieve our goal, greater independence. So all those made sense to me. So anyways, and then what was going on at this time, which is kind of not as much of an issue because there's more galleries showing younger artists, is there was an established art world and there was these young galleries. Dan was one of them. The AB was one of them. Rory Devine with Try was another. And the first one was Sue Spade. And they all showed younger artists that were just coming out of graduate school like myself. And so this was what happened to the 80s and a Robert Longo image of going down. And then what I thought represented us, the troll who paints smiles on faces. Okay. Later, a couple of years later, I decided to have a gallery in a dumpster. I was invited by Deanna Cohen to be in her show Mondo Lot, which was basically a bunch of young artists in the parking lot of established art galleries, an opening season in September. And I thought, I'll use one of their dumpsters and I'll do a better job of showing artists, and I could show the artists I like the most. Here's a sample of them. A few of these artists are alumni. Let me point them out. Richard Godfrey, Rachel and Toba Kadori. Toba got the MacArthur Award. Paul McCarthy went there a couple of years. Jason Rhodes, the late great Jason Rhodes, and Mike Will. And here's what it looked like. Here is Sue Spade, who I kind of took the name of my gallery because hers was called Sue Spade Fine Art, so Steve Hurd Fine Art. And Sue is, I'm showing her some work in there. So I took out all the stinky stuff once again, I supplied flashlights and gallery lists so you could kind of dig around in there and look for your favorite artwork. We made the work really, really cheap. And so, and I took I was supposed to take 10%, and I actually never took any money. And they worked out the sales with the collectors themselves. But you can see we sold a few of the pieces. This lady's going to buy that apple by Kevin Sullivan. Here I am kind of in the end, kind of going through stuff. This is a shot of the reception area where you could, there was a box of wine, the flashlights, there was the price list. I don't see them on there now. And here I am with Skip Arnold. He's one of the artists, performance artists, lives in Paris right now. And I'm fixing him up with a glass of wine. And this is at the very end. And you can see the Manuel Ocampo painting. Manuel requested that the gallery be placed on top of the painting because he felt like that's where he ended up in most galleries anyways, with them on top of him. This is no content, all context, no content. It's at the LA River show, one of many shows done by Brett Goldstone, who did LA Steamworks 2 before the term steampunk even existed. We used to make steam-powered pieces, kinetic pieces, a kind of a hippie version of Mark Pauline's SRL, who Brett is friends with. And there's Richard Godfrey, who is also alumni. Anyways, if there's no content, then it's all context. And I'm interested in context. Okay, Rory Devine asked me to be in a show. Dan was in between galleries. He had a gallery in the Hollywood area where there was a lot of streetwalkers, a lot of sex workers walking the street. These newspapers were all over the place, and inside them was kind of a menu of things, sexual fetish type things you could go get services for. And the way they described them, I thought was pretty hilarious. And so I decided that I'd bring the content of this newspaper inside the gallery, and thereby bring the outside of the gallery's area inside the gallery, and kind of overwhelm it with these with all the ads. And the ads were stacked up, and you could just kind of flip through them like you would flip through the newspaper. Okay, many years later, I'm gonna jump ahead because I kind of like pairing these two together. Is I was asked to do the windows at the NYU Steinhardt Gallery, I'm going to mess it up, School for Art, windows, their gallery, 80 WSE Gallery windows. And I decided to do these, thinking of the marketing and how we also market religion, put these pieces in the window, and God is like Bear Aspirin, he works miracles. God is like Coke, he's the real thing. God is like General Electric, he brings good things to life. God is like Alka-Seltzer, try him, you'll like him. God is like Scotch tape, you can't see him, but you know he's there. God is like Allstate, you're in good hands with him. God is like Dial soap. Aren't you glad you have him? Don't you wish everybody did? God is like a Chevrolet, the heartbeat of America. And God is like Maxwell House, good to the very last drop. Let me see. I want to kind of go back and explain. So this is on a translucent material, and I wanted, and they were backlit, and I could send them in the mail. At the time, I really couldn't afford to even go to the show, so they installed it all. It was really satisfying to see your work like done by them, so by the school. So that's that piece. Now, let me just look at my notes here. This is Women's Day paintings, and they're in '94. So this is actually before I did those windows, and after I did the porno ads at Try. And I saw these magazine covers, and they were pretty horrible, actually. And I thought, what would it be like to paint them? And then I like to start with this one because painting is kind of a guilty pleasure and an indulgence for me. And these magazines had all that, and they're also kind of the worker magazines for housewives. And then it's interesting, when you paint them, they change a lot. Like, you don't really notice. I didn't notice that this weird stuff like heart attack and then I love you. A lot of times they're about desire and paranoia. You know, make this great dessert. Your family will love, but you need to lose some weight. Things like that. And this time the magazines aren't as good as that anymore. They're a lot more tasteful, maybe because of Martha Stewart. I don't know, but they were jam packed. This is kind of right before the computers are really taken off the internet, so they kind of are like clickbait, but in a magazine form. How I lost those 5 tough pounds. Oh, wait, let me go back to that one. So this is another example I like because when you get this magazine, you're not really thinking of I Love Chocolate and Whoopi being a Black actress. And so when you paint it, you're using like the same paint that you paint the cake with as you paint Whoopi. So it kind of flattens everything out, makes everything the same. So it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a revelation when you paint them. And they become more about the text and less about like, you know, that it's a magazine. Pornography and computers. So there it is, the new sex threat to your kids. So whenever this was back in, let me see, when are these? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the date, but okay. This is inside the magazines are these decorating tips, you know, how to make your house and your life better through decorating. And then I really like the side part because if it, and this one was sold to a collector and it's in his house now, I believe I saw an article with it in there. And I like the idea that you're telling the collector who, you know, you don't want to really admit, you want to think that your paintings are kind of something more than just a decoration, but hello, that's what they end up being. So I like the idea that for the collector, they're telling them, you know, how to make their place look better. And then also on the other hand, they're using decorating to kind of improve your life. And so the idea here was that mom, you know, worked hard, decorated the house, you know, and then her and dad went away on maybe a weekend vacation thing, and the kids had a party. I know that's happened a lot in Sacramento, and so they trashed the place. And the idea maybe that decorating is really more of a cover up than a self-improvement. And here's some other ones I did of it. That one was actually in the show with the Women's Day paintings. And so this one's Cozy Up, Easy Ways to Create the Kind of Room You Never Want to Leave. And I had a few things there that make me never want to leave a room. And this is to mellow the modern. And again, I know how to mellow the modern. Okay, let me get this ready. Okay, so during my first show with the Women's Day paintings and that country spirit piece, I got this review, and I'm going to let the AI read it.
Cover stories. Steve Hurd's big paintings of greatly enlarged magazine covers have the same eye-grabbing impact that causes you to pluck the latest issue from a newsstand rack. His 5 splashy pictures at Dan Bernier Gallery bank on a similar type of instant attraction and involuntary response. But after a moment, Hurd's art loses its seemingly irresistible pull. With a bit of reflection, his painterly renditions of Woman's Day and Family Circle magazines turn out to be as manipulative, formulaic, and empty as their throwaway sources.
Okay, so I got that. And when he said at the very end, he starts it off really great. I'm really excited. I remember when I read it, I was like, yeah, it, pulls you in and has all this eye-grabbing color and it's exciting. And then he said, formulaic and all that other stuff. And then he said, as empty as its throwaway subject matter. And I thought, I know what to do. Paint the review. Because for me, I'm not afraid of my work being empty because it's a space for the viewer. Remember, no content. And so I don't have a problem with that. I want to create a space for the viewer. I don't want to tell somebody what to think. I want to give them something to think about. And I thought, in art, you have a choice. Either you're empty or you're full of it. Just my opinion. Anyways, here's some details of it. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. I want to just point out the title is called Safe Passage, and as you can see right here in the center is this ad for this movie called Safe Passage, and it's also a pun because the words, the language is a passage, and so I painted it. And this thing is pretty big. It's 6 feet tall, and like 8 feet or so wide. And so this is like a real doorway, and you could kind of feel like you could walk through this. And the beer bottles are a little larger than life size because I noticed when I first started painting beer bottles Trompe l'oeil like that they seem to shrink. So you kind of have to make them a little bigger. Anyways. And there they are. I made them like shelves out of the layout. And in that show, because he kind of also in the review, he complained about, and this is 2 years later, by the way, I did this in my next show at Dan's. In that show, he said something about I'm doing something from 60 years ago, pop art and all that. And as I said before, I thought that my work was about media literacy basically, and about how we're marketed to, and the psychology of that, and what that says about us as a society. And maybe I should have said this all sooner. I mean, that's why I like those drapes with the God is like this and that. It's not really talking about God, but talking about us as a society. Anyway, so I decided to kind of make this show looked more like 100 years earlier, like old American art. And this is, I was growing some pot and I put it in the White House in this room. They all have different colors. There's the yellow room, the red room, and this is the green room. So in the green room is this piece. And this is McMemories. And this is a collectible doll that it has a little story for the collector to read about how the doll, there's this little cute little adorable boy and he's all sad and then he's upset and they give him his Ronald McDonald doll and now he's all happy because he has a friend, a doll with another doll, and it's all about pacification. And I thought, oh, I know what pacifies me. This is something I did in a group show about journalism and art, and this was a poster for a CalArts seminar on theory, and it's called Resistance to Theory, History, Practice, and then it had some text on it. And by the way, the seminar was 3 days at the Pacific Design Center, a big building, a beautiful building, and it was really great. I mean, it wasn't the seminar was much better than what they wrote on the poster. And I have another text, AI text.
If there is a resistance, is it a reactionary response designed to preserve a romantic vision of the artist, or does this resistance protect an unfiltered creativity that is perceived as threatened by an institutionalized critical theory? Is there a way to address the pertinent dangers of over-intellectualization without condemning criticism itself? Can we separate bad criticism from good criticism?
And I thought, talk about reactionary response designed to preserve a romantic vision of art. I mean, me thinks you protest too much. So I made this piece, go back. And I made this piece, and you can see there's a little thing stuck on here. It's a little comic strip, and it's a Bazooka Joe. And Bazooka Joe, he has his critical thinking here for Picasso, who's doubting his own work, and Joe straightens him out. The piece is called Stuck on Theory. If I didn't say it, I don't know if I did. Okay. Because of the Women's Day paintings, Jack Tilton was visiting a collector, and he really liked my painting and wanted to give me a show, but then the calendar was too full and all this, and maybe he'll do a show with me. And then out of the blue, I guess somebody bailed on him or something. He had an opening, and it was the beginning of the season in September of '95, and he asked me if I wanted to do a show. And I had been working on these paintings of kids stuff and Bop magazine covers, and I made this Candyland, from the game Candyland cutout. It was much like Snuggle, and I did a show. It was really exciting. Jack Tilton is a big gallery. He's still around. Again, Jack has passed, but was very supportive of my work, and so in there I did these things with these play school dollhouse setups, and this one's called Slumber Party, and you can see the Slumber Party was really successful, and Big Sis sent out little bro out to get some more beer. Anyways, I put these in the gallery, and I thought, what kind of, because these sex ads there's a playfulness to them, and it's kind of immature the way, I don't know, it's kind of, potty mouth talk. So I thought, they kind of go together, stack them all around. It'll content wise, it'll be uncomfortable, but aesthetically, formally, I thought they really looked good together. And also, it was interesting because inside the Bop magazines are these little squares, just like kind of the porno ads with the things that the little girls are talking about, and every month they'd have a new question, and this one's called "What food does your favorite star remind you of, and why?" And Bop magazine's a teeny bopper magazine, anyway. So they write all this stuff about these boys, and they're like consuming them. Literally, it's about cannibalism, and it's kind of amazing. And I like this one in particular. Jonathan Taylor, this one down here, Jonathan Taylor Thomas reminds me of a chocolate ice cream cone at Rocky Mountain Ice Cream and Yogurt at the mall in Bozeman, because they're sweet, they're tasty, they look like they should be framed, and I can't have either of them. Ooh. Anyways, they're pretty entertaining. Here's another installation shot. this is another 2-page spread from Bop magazine. In the center, the purplish looking one with poems and drawings of their star crushes. Okay, I had a job, and I was there for 8 years teaching high school students. And I went through some bosses there. I last longer than a lot of people who were in charge, were directors of the visual arts department. And I had this, one of my bosses, the one who just started, came in and reprimanded me, yelled at me in front of the students. I thought that they were undermining my teaching. So I wrote him a letter and I told him, I'm not going to teach there anymore. And I kind of told them I was pissed off or something like that. And then they said, well, wait. I'm going to send you a letter and we'll see how you feel after you get this letter. And so I'm going to let the AI once again read this letter. Okay, come on. There we go.
If there is a resistance, is it a reactionary response?
Oh, no, sorry about that. Here it is.
I think you are aware of how I have valued your participation in our program. However, I am shocked by the unprofessional and insulting way you choose to express yourself in your letter. While you couch your complaint between a positive critique at the start and a touching ending, your complaint is a seething injury attack reminiscent of the explosive outburst that you displayed on several occasions in my office last year, which I thought had ended. As your supervising authority at this job, the language in your letter should never be exhibited regardless of the situation. Your use of offensive language and disrespectful tone is threatening and unacceptable and must cease both verbally and in writing with all matters relating to this workplace.
Okay, go back to this. So I was really upset when I got that letter. It bummed me out. But then I realized, like the bad review, it would make a great painting. And then it was like a gift that I got this letter, because not all bad stuff that you get makes good paintings, but this one really would work. And I was going to do this show with Rosamund Felsen. It was going to be my first show at the gallery. And I thought, well, in the foyer where you walk in, like across from this painting is a reception desk, and you can see that's Rosamund's office straight ahead. And it would be like a great introduction, like signage about who I am. And I thought that would be really hilarious. And so there it is again. And this is the show. And I'll talk about some of the work in the show. This is frames. Again, it's about how a painting frames the content or frames an idea or frames something. It's without context. It's without content. It's about the context of the painting. And then across from it was this Oslo, which was about these guys this was a security camera shot of these guys who stole, I don't know how they wrapped them up white like that. And they wrapped them up in blankets or something, but they were these 2 Edvard Munch paintings that were stolen. And I should have looked up the update whether they retrieved them or not, but this is them running out to their getaway car. And this is an installation shot. I want to talk about the text painting, but there's 2 outbursts in them, and you could see one at Rosamund's office and the other one. And I'm going to talk about these. By the way, I get my titles from the letter I got, the reprimand letter. In that letter, they said should never be exhibited. So that was the title of that piece, and said your outbursts can't be tolerated or whatever it was. So I didn't know what to call these paintings, so I got the title Outbursts from that. But they are based on after like around 9/11, I kind of went into a funk and I started scribbling, just watching the news, going, woe is me, and making these scribble drawings. And I was like, I didn't know what to do with them. And some other work I'm going to show later, I found this digitizing looked kind of interesting. And then I could tweak them with the color saturation and all that. And so, so I took these kind of organic or human gestural things, and then I made them mechanical. And then by painting them, they become human again. So it's kind of a layered thing. And I'm interested in abstract art, but I kind of need to appropriate things. So this was a way to appropriate my own work. This was actually on the internet, and it was a blog piece. I flipped it. It shows a painting by Rachel Lakowitz, who's an LA artist, feminist artist, who has made a lot of work about white male established artists. This is a Christopher Wool piece. She does them out of makeup, little makeup trays, and she puts them all in a row, and then they create the image. This one is a fucking painter's. So I thought that was hilarious, because I guess I feel a little defensive about being a painter. Like to think I'm more of a conceptual artist, but I do love painting. So I flipped it, made this big painting, and the title is kind of important. I'm going to read it. Art Shtick Blog Made Conceptual by Painting's Reflective Nature, or Flipped Off. And this is my second show at Rosamund's. And I did this still lifes, I guess you'd call it, of these beach ball globes of the world, and I called them Out of Gas.
Steve, just real quick, we have about 10 minutes left. We're getting a couple of questions, not too many yet. Do you want to go a little longer and then do the last 5 minutes question?
Can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll speed it up. This is End of the Road, which I showed with, this is a second year. This is another show at Rosamund's with another Out of Gas. It's the other side of the globe, Asia collapsing onto Africa. And this is a shaped canvas called End of the Road, which is driven by zombies. Across from it is Signal Ahead in reverse, as if you went through it and you didn't see the sign. And there's another shot of Out of Gas, the Asia one. There it is. This one I'm just going to take a little explanation. This is called Tower of Babel. Again, it's about this issue with painting is dead. These images were found on a web page that was obsolete audio equipment or obsolete technologies. And all these tape decks were around when I was in the new genres department at UCLA, and they were saying painting was dead, which made me want to paint, by the way. And so what I liked about this piece was I could record the recording equipment that could no longer record with painting. So who's dead? Who's dead now? Installation shot with basically. I want to talk about this piece. It was called For a Group Show. I put this in 2001 in a group show, and we put all the other work around it. You know, it's kind of competitive being in an art show with others. So it was kind of a way to get all the attention and kind of have fun with the other artists. One of the nicest compliments I got from the curator of the show was that people complained about hanging next to it. So what I did is I put it in my own show. It didn't sell, and actually sold out of this show. But I'm not beyond doing it to myself. Here's we're coming to the end. I might be speeding up a little too fast. These are the RIP paintings I did of flag draped coffins. To the left is this piece called The Pit, which is my thumbprint. And I did it before the gallery, LA gallery, called The Pit. Anyways, I thought, the viewer could fall into my thumbprint. And here are the RIPs. Now, in 2004, during the US-Iraq War, the Air Force released these photos in the Freedom of Information Act to an activist guy who was trying to get them. The Pentagon didn't want them on. It was a problem of the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. So they were released, but they didn't want them released. But being an Army brat and all of that, and feeling fortunate that my dad wasn't sent to Vietnam, I wanted to honor the troops and make these paintings. When I was downloading them, there was a moment where they were digitized, and I really liked what they did to the image. So I did these all digitized. Digitizing them is a lot more work. So they get you're constantly having to balance the whole thing. And I felt like it was a ritual myself, that I was somehow balancing my stress over the war and the negativity of it. So I was hoping that the painting was a positive cast on the whole thing. Get going. I think I'm gonna.
All right, Steve. We have a couple of questions. Do you want to answer a couple of questions?
Quickly, here's my last piece.
Oh, cool.
This is what I'm working on. This is a peace pipe painting for Ukraine and Russia. I made an image. I put it on Instagram. Maybe people saw it. Right here is the Ukrainian flag. This is the Russian flag. And then behind them, they're kind of struggling position. I showed you the plumbing. So I made these paintings so you could smoke them for peace. Okay, done. Where are the questions? Where do I find them?
Thank you so much, Steve. Sure. I'm gonna stop the share maybe so people can see you a little bit better.
Okay.
Or you can just stop the share of the screen share.
Right. Oh, okay.
Then,
there we go.
First question was Nina. What made you do the burning piece at the roof of SFAI?
Right. So I was down in the sculpture lab, and I had seen in ceramics you could do this thing where you would put paper in them, you put the clay around, use the paper, and it would burn out in a kiln. And I thought, I could do this like in real time. And so I had put paper and made a little plaster face. And I remember I was in Bill Geis's class, and I lit it on fire. And I remember Bill walking around like going, smoke, stop that, horrible. And I just thought, I got to take this outside and make it bigger. And I really didn't think like it would turn into like that horrible thing. And I got, in trouble. I mean, it's lucky I didn't get kicked out of school. I don't think you could do it nowadays. Really, I think you get kicked out. So it just shows how wonderful. It's just too bad that, it was cheap, and you could bring your dog there, and you could drink in class and smoke weed. And, those were the days. Anyways. Okay.
Another question from a very recent graduate, actually, Eugenie. I want to ask about the trash San Francisco as well. Was there any message there?
Well, yeah, because San Francisco is built on landfill. And San Francisco is a very pretty place, but San Jose has smog. Where do you think that smog came from? So there we go. And also, it was kind of an attack on myself, because I came to LA kind of as a San Francisco snob. Now, I'm not trying to say anything about that San Franciscans are snobs about LA, but I know I was. And so I was kind of just, messing with it. And then the title of the show was, LA Rules. So anyways.
Daryl Mika has a question. Is Who's That Now on canvas or is it flat on the wall?
What?
Who's That Now? Is Who's That Now on canvas or is it flat on the wall?
VCRs.
Oh, the VCRs?
Yeah, the VCRs, I believe.
Yeah, everything's flat. Oh, but they're shaped canvases.
They're shaped,
They're flat.
Mm-hmm.
They're flat.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, again, that equipment, was, painting is dead. And, now I'm recording the equipment with painting. Mm-hmm. Okay. You know how that turned out. Okay.
And you can ask your own question. Go ahead.
Myself. I've had a really great time watching this and laughing. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
I was laughing too. It was great.
But I hate to ask the obvious.
Okay.
You talk about the drips. They've been following you for a long time. The drips in your paintings.
Yeah. A lot of people want to think that they have some kind of meaning, like they're tears or rain or, they're really just to point out that it's a painting. And, paint drips. It's messy. And also they record time. And so, and they record the process because sometimes there's ghost drips and you paint over them. So, and actually kind of give it a 3D element to it, which maybe that's why they say it's like rain or something. And it's fine if people want to think that stuff, but I just like the process. And most important, this idea that it's a painting and not a magazine cover or not a porno ad, I mean, although I guess they still are advertising the things they are, but now it's a second look at those things. So I hopefully that answers that question.
Thanks so much, Steve. Yeah. Annie, do you want to close before we stop the recording? You want to do a closing real quick?
Are you talking to Steve or me?
To Annie.
Yeah, I just want to thank
Steve, you too.
Everybody for coming. We have our friends from Europe and all the way to Hawaii, to Wayne Zepsa, and a lot of San Francisco, and it's just great that everybody came. Hey,
everybody! I see you guys out there, Wayne.
I'm gonna take away the spotlights now, so you can actually see.
There's a bunch. I probably. Oh, good. You can show me everybody.
Everyone is.
My sister's there somewhere. I mean, but anyways, and some of you I might not even know if I don't see your name, because I look a lot different than I did when I was 13 years old at the Art Institute in '69. I know. So, and everybody's used to that guy. Anyways, it's great to see you guys, and thanks for coming. And thanks, San Francisco Artists Alumni, for this. And I would encourage, they're having a fundraiser right now, and you could give $10. And it'll mean a lot. And they're doing a lot of good work that isn't just this thing. It's the newsletter. And also, you guys are the only ones that give a shit about the transcripts. It's a crime. It's a crime what they did to this school. And you really go off on that, as you know. And I love that place since I was 13 years old. And you guys are the only ones when it was going down, you were creating, talking to the administration. No one represented us. And now they're working to get the transcripts. The digital ones are going to be a lot harder to get a hold of, but they're working on that. And I want to thank them for all their work. And if any of you want to give a little, that would be greatly appreciated. And Annie, what?
I just want to say one last thing about Steve Hurd, because he was the person who was behind the whole archive. He doesn't want anybody to know that probably, but he did a petition, and Marion and I and some other people worked on it. But Steve is the engine that saved those archives and talked to Jeff and got them out. And got them out of the building.
Thank you so much, Steve, for all the work you do. And thank you for this beautiful talk today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening. It was a pleasure to do it. It was nice to look at all this work and kind of figure out this long journey that isn't over yet. So